Hi everyone, I'm Colin Roberts, and if you sent me a question, you probably read my bio. I have a couple questions here I'm going to go through. The first one is, how did your experiences at Michigan lead you to teach in South Korea? This is a tough question to answer, and I'm not going to answer it really. That's like saying, how do all of the atoms come together to make an apple pie, you know? There's a lot of different things that impacted my decision. In the moment, I was finishing up my 5th year at U of M, and I was talking to a couple people in the upper level classes I was taking, and I asked them questions about what they did right out of undergrad and anything interesting that they've done. And it turns out that quite a few people in a number of different classes in totally different areas had taught in Korea for 1, 2, or 3 years, and they all highly recommended it. So right after I took their experiences in mind, and I didn't get a chance while at Michigan to study abroad. So I've traveled a little bit, but I never really lived in another country, and I thought this would be the best time to do it. So here I am. Question 2. What role did your involvement in student groups have in preparing you for life outside the university? This is another one of those huge questions that's totally intangible and unquantifiable and really hard to answer. I think that one of the only ways I can think to answer that is getting involved in student org. So I was in a marching band. I was in an organization called Boxes and Walls, which may or may not be around anymore. I guess you can call res staff working for res staff as an RA in residence education as sort of an organization. I'd say the number one thing from all of these organizations and all of my positions that have really impacted my life is my interactions with people from tons of different backgrounds, people with different mindsets, being able to talk with at length people who don't agree with me, people who think in a different way, people who have all sorts of valid reasons for not thinking the same way as me, and being able to talk with them and get in their brain and figure out why the world is so complicated and difficult has really been the number one preparation for being out in the real world, where things are difficult and challenging, and stuff comes up that you can deal with and stuff comes up that you can't deal with. And it's been really helpful to know I can't really know, but to have ideas about why people think and act in different ways, and being able to identify the people who I can spend time and share my own ideas with, and the people who I can engage in lively discussions. Question 3. How is it being an openly gay man living in South Korea? That's an interesting question that has an interesting answer. I would say that among... I guess I'm not... I wouldn't say I'm fully openly gay in South Korea for a number of reasons. I'm fully open with all of my friends, Korean and non-Korean, because there's quite a few foreigners. There's a pretty big foreigner community in Korea and in my town. And with all of those people, it's just fine. It's never been a problem. It's the same as back in the States. I'm not out at work, and most of that is just because it doesn't really have any relevance. Question 4. What experience during your college career most shaped who you are today? What experience during your college career most shaped who you are today? Wowza. I'm not going to pick just one, because that would be unfair to my experiences. And I'm reflecting on sort of those times when you get really deep and into cognitive dissonance, and there's just these really weird moments of self-reflection and sort of really deep thinking. I remember one of them happened early on, my freshman or sophomore year, when I took a intergroup dialogue through IGR, an intergroup dialogue on gender. And that was a really sort of emotionally trying and expanding experience for me. I don't think I remember, too much of the material being covered. It wasn't shocking. I'd seen some of it before. But the experience of talking about all of those things with other people sort of openly was really formative, and I think set the stage for being able to talk about those issues and engage in dialogue about really intense issues, things that are close to us, things that are really personal, and being able to talk about those honestly with other people. That was a really powerful experience. What experiences during your college career most shaped who you are today? Oh, that's tough to answer. I think I sort of said in my bio, I lived at the wonderful Mary Markley my first year. Mary Markley. I lived at Markley my first year, and I spent the first semester of my second year in West Quad, and then was hired on to res staff as an RA, and I spent the rest of my time in housing. And I think, a lot of people will live outside of the housing system and get their own apartment and sort of live on their own. And I spent one summer living in 2 houses on my own, and that was really formative just because I'd never done it before. I'd never lived on my own, and I was sort of undeveloped in that respect, and so spending a summer out there was really formative for me, and totally affected who I was. And then I think the last one I want to tack on is happened at the end of my university career, and it was actually an essay someone had forwarded to me that got stuck in my brain. It was it's recently gone sort of viral, I think, and it was an essay, a commencement speech given by David Foster Wallace at Kenyon College in 2005 called "This is Water," and I really took it to heart, and it actually meshed with a couple other things I was reading, and sort of really affected my experience, and I think has had a big impact on who I am today. Question 5, I think we're on here. Have you come across any hardships being a gay man in either your experiences at the Natural History Museum or teaching in South Korea? No. I don't think I have. The Natural History Museum is a fantastic place to work. I wasn't the only openly non-straight person there, and it was a really welcoming place, and in day-to-day work, sexuality doesn't really come up when you're talking about dinosaurs and stars and natural history and all of the... there's an evolution exhibit when I was there, but I think now it's on race and ethnicity, which is really cool. I'm sad I wasn't able to be part of that. But it never really came up. But when it did come up, everything was great. I had absolutely no problems. And like I said before, in South Korea, it doesn't really come up at the job, and when it does, I don't really talk about it, and I don't really have any problems. In day-to-day life, when I am open, it's fine, and it's absent of hardships. Oh, I think my camera just stopped. I'm going to keep going, though. And the last one, have you noticed any differences in how gay culture is expressed in America versus South Korea? This is a hard question to answer because I don't really frequent places where gay culture is... I don't know. Okay, so let me take a step back. When I think of gay culture in America, I think of a lot of places and sort of themes that we see widely publicized. It's like the dominant narrative of non-straight people, which tends to be, like the activities that are really popular with upper middle class white men. And of those, the ones that get a lot of attention are things like clubbing and sort of really gay-centric stuff, which even back in the US, I sort of see and I sort of acknowledge that it exists, but it's not a huge part of my life. And it's sort of similar here in Korea. In talking to my gay friends who are Korean, those sort of similar places exist. Not nearly as many, but there are gay bars and you know, I think a couple gay clubs. But, you know, I don't really frequent those places anyway, and so I'm not really sure if there's any differences there. I would say that in the wide range of gay culture things that there are in the US, Korea probably has most of the same things in that wide range, just far fewer. You know, as I mentioned before, sort of sexuality isn't really too talked about. There's definitely an underground culture, and there are definitely gay people everywhere. So things still happen, just not at the same level as in the US. I will say that one of the things I really appreciate in South Korea is a lack of sort of a lack of hesitance between physical when it comes a lack of hesitance when it comes to physical contact between people, especially boys. You know, I think back in the U.S. there's boys have a lot of trouble and don't feel comfortable sort of physically connecting with each other. You know, putting an arm around a shoulder, you know, could be called out by someone as, you know, gay, and people tend to be extremely homophobic, and Korea, for the most part, from what I've seen, you know, I'm sort of out in areas that I think are traditionally conservative. I teach out in sort of a low-income, rural, all-boys school, and there's really not nearly as much homophobia when it comes to interpreting the physical actions of other boys. And it's really nice to see. You know, it's nice to see boys running around and, you know, hitting each other and hugging each other and holding hands and, you know, congratulating each other with pats on the back, or all hanging out together or getting in a big huddle, and nobody, you know, cries gay, and nobody assumes anything, and nobody beats anyone up for, you know, giving someone a hug. I am going to put in a qualifier and say, you know, all of those nobodies is probably just from what I've seen, and, you know, I don't know all the situations. There's definitely homophobia, and there's you know, definitely kids who are picked on, and kids who are sort of assumed to be gay, and kids who are called out for being gay, whether or not they are, and that's still a problem. But the ability to sort of have physical contact just as part of friendship, I think, is a really great thing, and that's something that's noticed by a lot of people who come here. Alright, that's at the end of the questions. I hope I've answered them satisfactorily. I hope the people who ask some of those sort of difficult, probing questions have some sort of closure with those, because those are pretty tough. And I look forward to seeing the responses from other alums, and I hope people come forward to make some more videos. It's even as an alum, I enjoy seeing where other people have gone, and I hope that my answers can help guide or inform decisions of future alums. The decisions of future alums. Alright, and with that, I'm going to end this video. Take care, everyone, and go blue.